Hello everybody. Today I'm going to show you how to start a common generator. This is a 5500 running watt generator. It has 11 horsepower Tecumseh engine on it, and it is a rope start, and this is a very simple procedure, but there are some things that you need to know in order to be able to do this safely, so I'm going to give you the quick run through. First of all, before you run the generator, you have to be sure that it is ready to go. All right? And one of the things that you need to do is you need to make sure that it is properly fueled. Now this generator has, I believe, a 5-gallon tank, which will allow it to run for roughly 10 hours if it's running at about 50% of its rated capacity. In order to check the fuel level in the generator, sometimes you can just look into the hole if it's up near the top, but the other thing you can do is you can use a paint stick and you can get an idea how much fuel is in it. And as you can see, there's maybe 1.5 inches or 2 inches of fuel in it. That's only maybe 1 gallon of fuel at the most. All right. If it was full, it would come up to about where the tip of my index finger is. Make sure that you have enough fuel in the generator to run it for however long you anticipate needing it. Now would be a great time, while the engine is cool, to fill it up with gasoline. If it runs out of gasoline while it's in operation, which could very well happen, you need to allow the generator to cool down for a period of at least 10 minutes before it will be safe to refuel it with gasoline. Because if you happen to spill some gasoline onto the hot parts of the engine below, you could have a fire, and that gets out of control very, very, very quickly with gasoline. So something you need to keep in mind. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the fuel line is turned on. Now there is a valve here, and you can see that it has this red tab on it, which twists 90 degrees, okay? And when it is twisted, like it is now, the flat surface of the handle is in line with the fuel line. That means that the valve is on. That means that gasoline can get from the gas tank down to the engine. So you want that on for this test. Turning it off will block the gasoline flow from the gas tank to the engine. And that is one way to properly shut down the generator after a test. If you run the engine out of gasoline by turning this valve off, then you don't have any gasoline sitting in the engine's carburetor going bad. So I prefer to leave my engine with the carburetor dry. And in order to do that, when I'm done test running it, I turn this valve off. But for right now, we're going to run it. Now, like with any gasoline engine, there is the question of, does it have enough motor oil? And you can check that on this side with this cap. And we can assure ourselves that there is in fact enough motor oil in the engine. Okay? If there isn't, add it only a few ounces at a time, because the whole thing only takes about a Coke bottle's worth of oil, and it's real easy to overfill. And if you fill it past the full mark, then the oil tends to foam and doesn't lubricate the engine properly. And something else I want to mention about the lubrication and oil. This engine has low oil shutdown protection, which means that there's a sensor in the engine, and when it detects that it is getting low on oil, which can happen, the engine will shut down. And you will think for all the world that it is out of gasoline, because there is very little indication that something is wrong. However, if you pull the starter cord, you'll notice that this is a on-off switch for the engine here. And if you look a little bit more closely, you'll see that it is clear. It has a light in it, and that light will flicker if the low oil condition is detected and it is preventing the engine from starting. So that light will only flicker while you're pulling the cord though, so you'll have to look for it. Best off checking the oil level before you ever even get started. Now, this engine is carbureted, which means that it has a choke. The choke lever is located right here, and as you might know, the choke has to be fully on to start a cold engine. Once the engine starts, however, we will quickly move the choke off 1 notch, okay, and the engine will start to run more smoothly. As the engine starts to warm up, its need for the choke to be on will gradually decrease, and we will gradually take it off, okay? And off is when it's all the way over in this position. So since we're starting it, we'll put it all the way on. Now, this is an 11 horsepower engine, and if you are of slight build, you may have difficulty starting a cold 11 horsepower engine. 11 or 12 horsepower is about all that most people can do. So if you're female, not particularly strong, if you're disabled, you may need to have a strong neighbor or friend come out and help you with this in order to get it to start. Most days of the week, I don't have too much trouble. So I'm going to just rip the cord and we'll watch this thing start up. And as soon as it starts, you'll notice that I'm going to take the choke off 1 notch and the engine will start to smooth out. So, watch what happens. Like I said, okay, you'll notice that I had to move the choke. The engine was running very roughly at first. Now I have taken the choke off 1 notch and the engine is starting to warm. Now you'll start to hear the engine sputter a little bit. That's an indication that you need to take some more choke off. Now you might be wondering, how do I shut this thing off? Well, that's this button that we talked about right here. And that will turn it off. Make sure you leave it on so that you're not fighting with pulling the cord repeatedly the next time you go to start the engine, only to discover that the switch is turned off. I leave it on at all times. Okay, that concludes how we start up a common generator. Thanks for watching.